First of all, I apologize for not getting a video out last week. It was a bit of a tough week last week, but we're all good now, so we can return to our weekly video schedules, I hope. So because I didn't put a video out last week, I'm going to extend the giveaway for my food video out to Monday, so I won't be picking a winner until Monday, June 15th. And for those that don't know, I put out a video on fish food a couple weeks ago. I'm doing a giveaway attached to it. All you have to do is go over to the video and leave a comment, and then I'll be picking a winner from the comments. And then that winner will get a fish food that I use and recommend. That is also on the Amazon of their region. I will do a video Monday when I pick the winner for the fish food, and I will contact them and let them know. So for this week's video, I want to talk about something that I like. Nano tanks. Now, I've always kept smaller fish tanks. It wasn't until recently that I got anything over a 20. So, for me, smaller fish tanks have always been the way of life, so I've known how to deal with them and use them. This video is not really going to follow any structure pattern or anything. It's just going to be chit-chatting, basically. So it's just going to be me talking about nano tanks. Really no rhyme or reason to it. I'm going to give you some fish, and that's really all about it. So yeah, I hope you enjoy me just kind of rambling on and chit-chatting a little bit with you guys on nano tank. Now, I always assumed or considered myself that a nano tank was anything 5 and under. I did a quick Google. Google says anything 15 and under, so I'm going to say 10 and under is what I would consider a nano tank. Now, out of the 17, 18 tanks I have, 10 are nano tanks. I have tanks ranging from 1 gallon to 2.5 to 5, 6, and then 2 10 gallons. I would say if you're getting in nano tanks, you're not used to the whole fish cycle and ammonia spikes and feeding, I would say go with a 10 because it leaves you a little more wiggle room for dealing with an ammonia spike and cycling your tank. Okay, for example, I have a 5 gallon with some guppy fry and a beta in it right now, and I'm dealing with a little bit of an ammonia spike in that, so I'm having to do almost daily water changes to keep it at a low enough level where I won't be killing my fish. So that's the problem with nano tanks. They're a smaller tank, so while you get the benefit of not needing a giant stand and you can put it on your desk or a countertop, you also have to be aware that overfeeding can lead to an ammonia spike much quicker than in a bigger tank, and you also can't put as many fish in them. There are plenty of smaller nano fish that are perfect for these size aquariums. I think currently I have the most 5 gallons, and then second to that is 2.5. I'm mainly using the 2.5s as beta tanks. Now, don't come for me, YouTube. My betas have filters and they have heaters and lots of plants in the tanks. So they're being well kept. No one's being abused in my tank. They may be in 2.5 gallons, but that's not a fish bowl. It's not a little tiny cup. They have enough room to swim around. They lay in the plants. They're healthy. They're fat little pigs. Please do not come for me that they're in 2.5 gallon tanks. I do plan to upgrade them to 5 gallon tanks. I just don't have the space at the moment. With that being said, the 2.5 gallon tanks, you're either going to put a beta fish in it or maybe some shrimp or snails. You're not going to be able to put a whole lot in 2.5 gallons. So I would say 5 gallon or 10 gallon is where you're going to be able to actually do some interesting stuff with them. In the 5 gallon, you could put some guppies in it. You could put celestial pearl danios, which is one of my new favorite fish. You could put the beta fish in it, and then you can get the beta a couple little friends. Not a lot. Still, you can't do as much in a 5 gallon. But 5 gallons come in an array of different sizes. You can get them in small bow fronts. You can get them in rectangles. You can get them in circles. You can get them in cylinders. They come in vertical form. They come in horizontal form. I've seen hexagons. They have like a weird pyramid thing. They have like a half cylinder turned on its side. So they come in a wide variety of different shapes. So you can get one that fits your needs, and they range anywhere from, I've found them as cheap as like 25 to upwards of 55, or a little bit more depending on what brand you get. I have Top Fin, which is PetSmart brand, which I unboxed in another video, and then I have Cooler tanks, which I've never heard of them, but they just found them on Amazon and they were cheap and I needed to tank quick. I know Tetra, Aquion make them. I believe Fluval makes small 5 gallon tanks. But again, as nano tanks are, so I would say they're moderate to advanced depending on how small you go. If you go with the 10 gallon size, you're gonna have far less problems on the smaller tank. So if you're just getting into tank keeping and you want to start out, I would say get a 10 gallon tank, because with the 10 gallon you have more wiggle room for all the issues that come with fish keeping. And with it being a slightly bigger tank, you can stock it more. Now again, if you're starting out, I would say start with an understock until you get used to it. My 10 gallons, since I've kept them before, I had 6 zebra danios in it, 4 guppies, a beta, some nerite snails, and it's loaded with some live plants. It's got 2 types of filtration in it. I have a 10-gallon sponge filter from the Aquarium Co-op, and then I have an Aquarium hang on the back that is rated for 5 to 15 gallon tanks. So I have double filtration on it, and everyone seems to be doing well. I haven't had too many issues with it since I got it cycled. Now, most people, when I was posting in Facebook groups, are like, your tank is too overstocked, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yes, but I understand how to keep a tank. I understand the nitrogen cycle. I understand not to overfeed my fish. And once this tank has been cycled, it has probably been the tank I've had the least amount of problems with. I've never had a crazy algae bloom in this tank. I've never had a crazy algae growth in this tank. I never had a random spell where just fish started dying off. So for me, it works out perfectly. And I keep the tank at like 76, 77 for the fish, and it works out just fine. Probably one of my cooler nanos that I have is my 6-gallon. Now the 6-gallon is a cylinder shaped tank. So it stands about 16 inches tall, and it's only like an 11-inch diameter. So it's taller, not wider. So in that tank, I have a sand and gravel bottom. I have a couple plants in it, and I have a lot of red leaf floaters on the top, or red root floaters, sorry. That tank has a school of 10 celestial pearl danios in it, and a group of amano shrimp on it. I believe I have 6 amanos in there. Now, before I put the amanos in, or the CPDs, and I knew I was going to be putting shrimp in the tank, I left the lights on like crazy. I didn't turn them off for like a week, and I had a nice bit of algae growing on the tank. The amanos took care of that algae in about 3 days. Ever since then, the tank has been spotless, and I've been leaving the light on longer and longer to try and grow some more algae for them, since they just ripped through it. Now, most people say CPDs hide a lot. Mine are always nice and schooled together and swimming around the tank, so I don't know why other people had that problem. Maybe their groups are too small, but for me, I love CPDs, and I think they're one of my favorite nano fish. So for that, we'll lead into nano fish that you can keep in your nano aquariums. Personally, for me with nano fish keeping, I'm gonna say you're gonna want to limit it to fish that stay 2 inches or under. I wouldn't go much over that, with the exception of being a beta, and I think those get no more than 2.5 inches. This way you can get nice schools of fish, and they're smaller, and you can fit slightly more in your nano tanks. Now the first and probably most popular fish that is a nano fish, I'm using air quotes, you can't see, but I air quoted that, would probably be the beta fish. Now I put it in air quotes because to me they're not really a nano fish, but they're perfect for these smaller aquariums. And yes, you can put them in bigger ones, yes, you can put them in smaller ones. There's a wide diversity of a fish. So I would say betas are probably the most popular nano fish right now, and always, just because they're everywhere. You can go into any pet store and get a beta fish. If you're going to use a smaller size tank though, I would say get one that's got more of the big long flowy fins, because they're a slower swimmer. If you get something that's like an HMPK, or you get a plakat that have the sleeker like shark style fin to them, they're going to want a little more space to swim around and move. So I would say stick to these slightly larger ones like the half moons or the full moons, crown tails. It's kind of all I remember off the top of my head. But get the ones that have the bigger fins on them. My next suggestion for a nano tank, I'm going to say these guys can go in 5 or above, would be celestial pearl danios. They don't get very big. I think they max out around 1.5 inches, maybe. They kind of look like mini rainbow trouts. If you don't know what that is, it's like a brown body fish with orange accents on its dorsal and back fins. And they get like little brown, or they get little gold speckles, so they look really nice. The females are more translucent in color. They don't really have the dots, but they still have the orange accents around the fins. So I think they're a cool fish. I would say you're probably going to want to keep these in a group of 6 or more. I know a lot of places I've seen them sell them in groups of 5 or more. So I think a smaller group, they're going to be more likely to come out and show themselves, because they'll be more relaxed. Now the next 2, one of which I own, one of which I don't, but they're very similar, would be the strawberry rasbora and the chili eye rasbora. They both only get about like 0.8 inches. They don't get really big, so they stay around 3/4 of an inch. The chili rasboras are more of a reddish orange color. The raspberry rasboras are a gray-bodied fish with a couple of black spots throughout them with some reddish-orange accents. They're nice little fish. These, again, keep them in a school of probably 6 or more. They'll be happy. But they're just smaller, so you can probably put a few more of them in your tank. But these, I would say, again, 5 gallon or higher. The higher the size tank, I'm saying higher, the larger the size tank, the more fish you can again put in it. The next two fish are going to be a double again because they're very similar, and I've kept both of them. That would be the neon tetra and the cardinal tetra. Now the neon tetra stays smaller. They get about 1.33 inches small. The cardinal tetra are going to get a little bit bigger. They can get up to 2 inches. The only reason I would say go with cardinals over neons is if you don't know where the neons came from, they can be more susceptible, in my experience, to disease, whereas the cardinals seem to be a little more robust and hardy. They look very similar in color. Their colors are kind of reversed with the red and the blues, but unless you have them side by side, most people probably wouldn't tell the difference. They would just say, oh, you have neons in your tank, and then you can say, oh, actually, they're cardinal fish, and then that could lead into a whole nother discussion of where they're from. You could lead into a Project Piaba spiel. You can do a lot of, it's more of a talking point if you have cardinals and neons. And again, the cardinals, in my experience, are again less likely to be susceptible. These are again a schooling fish, both of them, so you're going to want to keep them in a group of, again, 5 or more. I would say slightly more. If you're going to do a 5 gallon, you can probably get away with a group of 6 neons, 5 cardinals, bare minimum. These you might want to go up to a 10 gallon tank with, and then you can do a group of 10 of both. But again, proper filtration and everything. I'm probably gonna get a lot of flack for saying that, but that's what I would do and have done. And sticking with the 5 gallon size, another 2 good, again, similar fish would be the guppy and the Endler's live bear. The Endler's live bear stay under 2 inches. I think they max out around 1 3/4. Guppies can get a little bigger, upwards around 2 inches. But there again, 5 gallons, you can do a group of 3 or 4. I would say you're going to want to pick either males or females because these two fish will reproduce like crazy. So if you want to do guppies or endlers, I would say pick the males because they look slightly better, or you can do 2 tanks. You can do a tank of females and a tank of males. If you wanted to go the other route, I would do a trio, 1 male to 2 females, but then you will have fry, so you will need to look into getting a bigger tank because 3 or 4 of these guys in a 5 gallon, you might be able to push that a little higher to like 6, but then I think you're going to run into some ammonia problems. So I would say to go 3 or 4 males of both of these. The Endlers stay a little smaller, so you might be able to get with 5, but they're a nice fish. Take a wide range of pH, a wide range of temperatures, and they're very peaceful, so you shouldn't have any problems with them, and they're super colorful. There are so many different kinds of Endlers and so many different kinds of guppies, and they're just beautiful fish all around. So 5 gallons, if you go 10 gallon, you could do a trio easy of either one of these and just let them reproduce and fill the tank up that way. Now, another cool fish that you could try are pygmy cories if you're looking at the 5 gallon size. They stay smaller, about 1.2 inches, so you can get a nice shoal of these going. So you could probably do 5 to 6 of these in a 5 gallon tank. It would have to be a species only tank. You could do 5 to 6 of these and they would be great. I say species only, but pretty much most all nano tanks under 10 inches are gonna be species only, unless you put like 2 fish and a shrimp in it. But pygmy cories are another cool little fish. Personally, I haven't owned them, but I've seen a lot of footage on them, and it's a small cory catfish. They're cute little looking things. Now, something I haven't really touched on, 5 gallon tank, you could probably do a small shrimp tank. I might err against it though, because water changes and all that, but I have them at my 6 gallon. Cool thing about this 6 gallon tank is I have not changed the water in it, and it has been running since April. The ammonia is 0, the nitrites are 0, and the nitrates hold around 5 parts per million. Now, it's got 10 CPDs in it, and it's got 6 amanos in it, but those red root floaters, say that 10 times fast, tongue twister, those red root floaters soak up so much of that nitrate that it just keeps everything low. And it's just been a low maintenance tank. I've got a small sponge filter on it. I haven't cleaned that. And just by having those plants, it's a cool experiment. I want to see how long I can take it And of course, I check the levels just to make sure nothing goes crazy. If I see a crazy ammonia spike or a crazy nitrate spike, of course, I'm going to do a water change on it. But it's just been a nice experience to see how far I can take a water change. I know there's some people that set up tanks, they never do water changes on them. And it's just cool that you can set that ecosystem up in such a small container and not have to worry about it. And nature just runs its course. That's another thing I love about this hobby. You can have a nano tank that's 6 gallons and just let it do its thing, and you don't have to really worry about it. And it's cool. The mono shrimp will swim to the top and hang on the bottom of the floaters and look for particulates of food, and it's just cool to sit back and observe it. Now keep in mind that everything I've mentioned for 5 gallon will of course work in the 10 gallon. You can just do bigger groups of them, so just keep that in mind. And one 5 gallon fish that I completely forgot about is another one that I think is super popular right now, would be the pea puffer. Haven't kept them though, so I didn't want to really recommend them too much, but that is another one that I know a lot of people are keeping right now when they're 5 gallons. Kind of like a beta though, you can only keep one in the 5 gallon because it'll go after other stuff. They're super territorial, so just keep that in mind if this is when you decide to keep. And of course, do some research on it and look it up and watch videos and all that good stuff. Now we're going to move up to the 10 gallon tank size. This gives you a larger group of fish you can keep. The first one that I'm going to mention are the emerald eye rasboras. These things only get about 2 inches, a little over. They're a cool little schooling fish. I have them in my sorority tank, and they're really nice to fun and look at. Nice to fun. Wow, I cannot speak today. So they have like a greenish gray body to them. They have a black spot on their dorsal fin, and their eye just kind of pops with like this emerald color, which is probably where the name comes from. So yeah, you can do a school of, I'm gonna say 10 of those in a 10 gallon. Plant the tank up. It would look really cool to have them go back and forth. Let's see. Moving on, we have the Harlequin Rasbora. I have some of these in a 10 gallon tank in my basement. I'm trying them out as a breeding project. After I got them, I found out that they're one of the harder fish to breed. But hey, it's a fun thing to try and replicate their environment to the point where they're happy. They again stay around 2 inches. Do a school of 5 or better of these, same as the one before. You could probably do a school of 10 and not have too many problems, but again, just keep up on your levels and your water changes. Now on the slightly larger side, we have the zebra danio. These get 2.5 inches, so I would say yes, you can do these in a 10 gallon tank. I think they're a schooling fish, but I've also heard that they'll pair off more so than other schooling fish. So you could probably do a group of 5 to 8. I wouldn't go any over 8 in a 10 gallon because that might be a little too crazy. They're super fast swimmers, so they'll go back and forth in your tank like crazy. So I wouldn't put anything too high up, but you can probably do some medium growing plants and it would look pretty good in there. Going back down to the 2 inch side, we have the white cloud minnows and other minnows like that. They get around 2 inches. Those take the largest range of temperature I've ever seen. They can go cold to warm, so it's a tank where you won't need a heater. So if you're in a place where you don't want to put a heater in your tank, you can get these white cloud minnows and you'd be good to go and not have to worry about it. And I apologize if fish that you own in your nano tanks aren't on this. I'm trying really hard to keep it the fish that I've owned personally, but I haven't owned everything, and there's so many fish that I haven't owned yet. So I'm trying to do mostly what I own and then throw in a few fish that I've seen other people talk about in these smaller tanks. So again, if your favorite nano fish isn't on here, I apologize, but I'm trying to keep it to things I've kept. Which leads me to this fish, which I was almost going to put in my 6 gallon instead. It is the scarlet batis. They stay small. They're a super colorful fish. They kind of look almost like an HMPK beta to me. I've seen them. They're kind of like reddish orange fish with blue speckles all over them, and the females even look cool. So these you could probably do a nice group of. I don't know how many you could put in a tank because again, haven't owned them, but I would say anywhere from 2 to probably 10. I don't know if they can go groups though, so I'm probably saying that. I should look this up, but just look it up before you get them because I've never owned them, so I can't give too much good advice in that. Sorry about that. Another cool fish that I have in my community tank is the bloodfin tetra. These guys get around 2 inches. They have a nice classic fish shape. They've got a perfectly gray to translucent body, but their fins all have this really blood red pop of color on them. Since thinking about 2 inches, you could do a nice 10-gallon tank of these, probably 5 to 6 of these. Get some val in there, or some dwarf val, or some nice grassy-like plants, and I think your tank would look really cool. That's actually one of the tanks I want to try and do at some point. I want to get like a 20 or 30, just get some val, let it go crazy, and just put a bunch of blood fins in there and just watch the red pop off of the green. I think that'd be really cool. I think that's gonna about do it for this video. I don't want to drag this on too long because I could go on and on. So I've tried to keep the list again, things I've owned. Most of your small tetchers, anything from 2.5 to 2 to under. I again try to keep it 2 inches or under, but you can push it. If you stay under that 2 mark, you can get more fish for your buck in a smaller tank. Of course, you can do shrimp tanks in a 10-gallon. That would look kind of cool. So thank you for watching. I will remind you again that there is a giveaway on my previous videos. So I'll put that up at the end of this. I'm not going to tell you to like, subscribe, or comment on this video. I'm going to reserve that and say please go over to Sand Creek Aquatics and give him a subscribe. His wish was to reach 1,000, so the FishTube community is trying to get him there. So I will put his link in the description. I'll try and put it up on the screen. I'm not sure if I know how to do that yet. So I would like to see if I can do my part to help him get to that 1,000 mark. So thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.